Yes,
Oh,
because I had some learning experiences
that's good.
from
Well,
our
isn't
last
that
one.
isn't
Yeah,
isn't that the point though? You kind of have to get back into
right,
reality, and the concept has to be you have to live in it in a dynamic, floating, diving, moving life, right? That's got a lot of influence coming from around you, right?
right. It's just not a book you read.
Exactly. It's not a vacuum.
Right,
It'd be so great if we could just live in a vacuum.
exactly. So, um, so I've been on a work vacation.
Nice. Oh, that's
Um,
right. Well, just reminded me. Sorry, I totally just got reminded of the whole sick, your resentment for people taking sick days.
yes.
Yeah.
So I've been off, and so I talked to you Wednesday, and then Thursday. Oh no, what happened Thursday? Oh, so um, for that I talk to you, and then I go to work, and something starts acting up with my car, my clutch.
Mm.
And I have been telling myself forever, once I hit the 100-pound mark, I will get rid of my car and get a new one. So that was my old thing there with my car.
Got it.
But, right. And so, I've liked my car dearly and never really wanted to see it go, but it's getting older.
Yeah.
2007. But it's a cool car. It's paid for. Blah blah blah. So on Wednesday, it starts giving me clutch problems, and so I knew that I was leaving town Saturday to go see my mom and sister, and then be in Vegas for my convention, my conference, and then stay there for a couple days after. So I decided that Wednesday that I would just go ahead and get rid of it. And it was a really hard thing to finally decide to do. I have thought a few times over the past few years that I would just, maybe I would start looking at other cars, but I knew it would be a waste of time. I'd waste the salesperson's time.
Yeah.
And my own time, because I didn't really want to give it up. But
Like you didn't want to get. You liked your car though. You liked it.
Yeah, I really.
Well, that and you had it paid off, so that's
Yeah.
like, that's hard to give up, because who has 20 grand sitting in their pockets to go buy a new car?
Yeah, exactly. But I felt like this was like good timing. Like I was ready, somewhat. Part of me was ready just to move on from it.
Yeah.
So, see, that was Wednesday. So Thursday, my husband and I went and I test drove a couple cars. And then, because I had an idea of what I wanted to do. And I'm actually going from a sports car to like small crossover SUV, which is a really big jump for me. This Mustang has been my identity. Like
your little sports car?
Yeah, it's an orange Mustang.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You got a lot out of it.
My car. Yeah. Like everybody knew if I was somewhere because my car was in the parking lot.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, and so I just decided that I was moving on from the Mustang. And it was starting to really bother my knees to get in and out of that car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it sits low.
Yes, and I'm 5'2", and the pedals are far from the driver's seat, and there's no way you cannot adjust them. And I did not realize how much I've had to tweak my body to get in and out of that car. I didn't realize that until my knees started bothering me.
Yeah.
And and I told my husband about 2 weeks ago that my knees were really bothering me getting in and out of this car, and I said, I think I can't drive a Mustang anymore. I came to that realization and went, oh crap, okay. So then my clutch starts to go out. So I'm thinking, okay.
Okay, here's the reality. Reality is showing up. Here it is.
Yes, it is big time. And so then we went test driving. Now I was leaving town Saturday, so I either needed to rent a car or just buy one by then. So I test drove, but I had an idea what I wanted, which was like a small crossover SUV. And so I test drove 3 Thursday and 2 Friday. And then I knew by then what I wanted to do. We went to lunch and we discussed it, and I said, you know what? Let's just go to the Mazda dealership. I said, that's the car. So then we went on Friday.
Did you get a Mazda 5?
I got a Mazda CX-5.
Nice. Those are great cars.
Oh my gosh, Robin, and then, I have good credit and stuff, so we were able to, within 3 hours, we were out of there.
I don't know. I drive a Mazda.
Do you? Okay.
I freaking love it. I drive a 9. I have 3 kids, so I have a 9. But freaking love. This is my third
those are
Mazda.
Beautiful. I sat in one of those. I was like, oh, but it's too big for my parking space.
Yeah, I have 3 kids, so I needed that back row. I'd prefer a 5. I left when I bought ours. I was like, God, I'd rather have a 5. I don't know. So I'm sitting over here going, oh, you got a 5? I have to drive a 9. I love Mazdas. They're such good cars. Hashtag Mazda.
Okay.
I'm not getting paid to do that. I'm not cool enough. But someday maybe I'll have a Mazda sponsorship behind me.
Right.
Yeah, I've had 3 of them. I love them. Anyways, so good for you.
Thank you. So I did cry when I signed over my Mustang. I traded it in.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. And the sales guy's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine."
I love that car.
I adored that car for the longest.
Did you take a picture with it? Do you have pictures with it?
No, I didn't even want to see it after I handed the keys over, and I was good. Well, actually, I had to grab a few things out of the trunk.
Yeah.
And so I was walking away from it to the Mazda, and I started crying.
That is really sweet. You had some sentiment with the car, but it's just an extension of you. That's something to really think about. What you loved about that car is it really was just an extension of what felt good to you.
Yeah.
And
it's low miles, and it's in decent shape, and somebody else will be able to enjoy it.
Totally, and it won't hurt their knees.
College kid or something.
You got it.
So I'm over it now. But yeah, it just so I bought the car Friday, and then I left Saturday for Vegas, and it was just a perfect time for me to get to know the Mazda and kind of bond with it on this little road trip. Yeah, and it is so I cannot believe how it rides so smooth.
It's easy to park, easy to turn. They were zippy.
Oh my gosh,
I know.
Was doing U-turns. I couldn't believe it.
I know. They're so easy. Anytime I've had a friend drive my car, they're like, "This car is so easy." Zippy turns. It's woo, it's got a great engine. I'm like, I know, Mazda, you never know. You never think.
Yeah, I had no clue. We've had VWs, Fords, Chryslers. This is our first Mustang, our first Mazda.
I'm a big fan. I love the interior. I love the look. It's simple. It's not complicated.
No, all the other cars I drove, the dash was so busy. They put everything and all the buttons are in one spot and together. And this one is just, the dash is streamlined with, it's like leather, they call it, and it has just a strip of like strip of sewing across the dash, and then the navigation is separate from the buttons. I mean, it's just nice. I really like the layout.
Yeah. So did you feel the urge to binge at all?
No, I was so happy.
I want you to go back to where you were when we started. Would you have binged? Like after you dropped your car off and got the new car, would that have set you off into, I'm going to go and feed myself?
Absolutely. I would have wanted to say I wanted to celebrate, but it would have been so that I could go binge.
Yeah, and you would have enjoyed the binge for sure, but then you would have had to, like, kind of like a pity party binge.
Right.
Anyways, good for you. So no urges at all to binge?
No. I mean, I was still sad for my car, but
that's exactly. You didn't need to do anything or feel sorry for yourself, and you were capable of feeling that way. You did that with all sorts of emotions going into it, and loss. There's a sense of loss or change. You did it without having to feed yourself to numb yourself through it or reward yourself for having to go through normal life situations. Good for you. Good for you. Is it still weird that you don't have that binge feeling yet anymore? Is that weird to you? Like,
well, it does when you mention it, but not at the time, because if I'm not thinking,
you don't notice anymore. Yeah.
Right, because if I'm thinking about it, I don't want to get that desire back.
You won't. Trust me.
Okay.
You won't. Because it didn't serve anything other than feeling better about feeling bad about yourself. So if you didn't feel bad about yourself, again, feeling better about feeling bad about yourself. How many people binge to feel better about feeling bad about themselves? Or to feel better about a bad situation?
Right.
Or to feel better about a good situation, just feeling better when there's no real reason to feel better, when you're just acknowledging and accepting reality as it's occurring. Why do you need something to feel better if you're accepting it as it is? Whether it's the loss of a family member, the change of a job, getting a new car and having to let an older car that you really enjoyed and loved and valued go, adding a whole car payment. That whole situation, you could say, is actually really emotional. It's like selling a house. It's like buying and selling a house. It's the same thing. It's an emotional decision, really, for most people.
Yes. And this one was such an upgrade from an 07 vehicle.
Oh my God, things are so much different now.
The things that I was missing, I thought I was missing about my Mustang, these new electronics far outweigh, like the power lift gate. What is that?
You're so awesome. I know. Well,
and
good.
It itself, I could go on and on. I know you know all about it, but it's just those things are helping me get over my Mustang too.
Well, of course. And you're appreciating the one you have, which is really awesome. So many people get a new car and they don't even appreciate it because they didn't get the top of the line. I got the step below. It's amazing. It's amazing how cars really represent, similar to body image, how many people project their identity into a car. Right?
Oh, completely.
Yeah, and how like even the narcissism can be projected into a car. So you can get, there's like not just a BMW, you need to get the 9 or the 7. You can't have a 3. And then there's grades within the grading of the car. The luxury cars get even more graded around, well, what type of luxury car are you driving and which number are you driving? Kind of like how I'm like, you did a 5 or a 9, which one, the grading within it. Now people will pay $10,000 more just to have the LX versus the SX or the EX or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Not that it matters whether you do or not, but some people it actually means something.
Right. Rather than just it's what they like.
Yeah, I wanted the Bluetooth.
Other people are gonna say about their car.
Exactly. I wanted the screen in the front because I want to have the reverse. I want to be able to do all that. So I did one upgrade because I wanted that. Not because I want people to know I have this special car.
Right.
I actually would
And
have
that,
preferred a lower car. But anyways.
yeah, and the backup camera, I'm just
Changes everything.
amazed.
I still rely on my head turn, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm looking at the screen, but no, I gotta look at. Yeah, you gotta get used to it.
Yeah. So I'm very pleased with my purchase, and having to drive it for a few hours out of town was like the perfect time to bond with it, because I was still like, oh, did I do the right thing initially? But after driving it, I was like, yeah. It was really good timing, just for it to
Good.
for it to happen. So then I went to my conference. So I spent a couple days with my mom and sister, and then I went to my conference. And then my husband came into town the last day of my conference, and then we spent a couple days there. So I spent like a total of 11 days out of town. And then we drove back on Monday. Which today's Wednesday? Yes, so we drove back Monday. And then last night, my sister texted me that her dad died. And yeah, she said she texted me that he had died on Friday. So I didn't ask her if she had found out on Friday because I was there on Friday, or if the other family member had just told her that he had died on Friday. But in any case, I thought it was kind of weird that he died while I was in town.
Is this your father?
No, this is my sister's dad.
Got it. You have different fathers. Same mom.
Yeah, this is the molester.
Got it. How do you feel about that?
Well, I was relieved. Honestly, I was relieved. I'm relieved for myself and a little sad for my sister.
Mm-hmm.
I was relieved because this weekend when I was hanging out with my mom, they live in a very safe community, and they often leave their front door unlocked. But when I am there, I will lock it. And I almost told my mom, it's just so weird that he died this weekend, because I almost told her, look, Mom, I'll never feel completely safe until he's dead. And I don't know if I thought she would think I was weird, or maybe she's had the same sentiments, or, Kim, you're crazy, he's never coming after us, things like that. But when I visit them, knowing that he's been living in Las Vegas for the past 6 months or a year or so, and when I go to visit, I know that if he was probably going to do something, he would have. And I'm sure that, my thoughts were irrational, but I knew him to be a violent person. And I work in a job where people do horrible, violent things to each other and kill each other. So for me, yeah, it was a possibility that I could get a phone call one day from Las Vegas Police Department saying, hey, your mom and sister are dead. Do you have any idea who killed them?
Yeah.
Or I could be at their house and he not know that I'm visiting, and he shows up to do something.
Yeah, that just comes from your not trusting him, which is understandable.
Yeah, and so to hear that he died is actually a relief to me.
Do you think that it was a relief for him too?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything. I know, according to my sister, he was still a bully.
That doesn't matter. I just want you to go into the compassion aspect of what I've taught you already. Do you think he had a real joyful life?
No.
Do you think he might have been relieved when he died too?
Yeah. I mean,
for sure. He was in hell.
So.
For sure. He was in hell. He didn't know. He didn't know how to get out. Anyways.
Yeah, he must not have, because he didn't ever change his bullying, horrible ways.
No, if he did, he would have had to have faced them with humility, and that would have been so painful for him.
Yeah.
I know. So dying was probably easier than living for him. Just saying, dying probably was the best thing that he's ever experienced. And I say that with total compassion for him, but I also have compassion for you. But I think it would be really healing for you to actually wish him well on the other side. That you wish his burdens are now gone. How does that make you feel? Well, are you having conflict around the way you want to feel in self-defense? Yeah. So go into what I actually, like, what would it feel like for you to have, like, feel like good for him, he is relieved of his hell, because he was hell. This has to be better than what he was existing in here, because he was clearly existing in some horrible state of mind that poisoned everybody around him. Think about that. Do you know what? Why I would position you to see it this way? Why would I do that?
Because we all go through our personal hell. There's no point in holding on to anger.
You got it.
For other people.
It's the goal is to get you out of the victim position. Why would you do that to yourself again? It's like, I'm just relieved for him. I'm happy for him that he is relieved from this hell and torment. Horrible torment here for him.
Yeah. And throughout the years, he's been like a phantom. Like, because I haven't seen him. I don't talk to him. I know that my sister has throughout the years, but I haven't. So he's been like a phantom floating around for me. And then to hear that he died makes him like real again.
Yeah, well, it brings up that your childhood perspective of him.
Yeah, exactly.
And the goal here for you is to feel love and compassion and to lay him to rest. Not from your childhood perspective.
Sure.
That's why I'm like... He
hasn't bothered me. He's not had any contact since I was a teenager, It's not like he's been stalking me all these years or trying to get in touch with me or anything like that.
No, just your childhood viewpoint of him has been doing that, right? We addressed that and it's been gone, but now I want you to actually go back to that state where you look at it and realize that it had nothing to do with you. It had to do with his childhood and the horrible, horrible, demented darkness that he lived in. He lived in that. And add to the fact the degree of shame that had to go with that.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean by, how do you think, aren't you grateful that he's relieved of that burden in this moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves that.
I agree.
At some point.
No, he does. There's a story behind what, there's a story. Yeah. There's a story, and if you probably read the story, it would make you cry. Of course, you have a story as well. But when you look at the person who's the abuser, and or you can at least, you don't even need to know, you can make the assumption. It's horrible, horrible, horror that would bring someone to that.
Yeah.
To where that's how they function. And that's
Exactly.
and they're so stuck in it they don't know how to function any different, even though it is toxic, destructive, and dark. He lived an entire life in that space, and so good for him. He's relieved. To me, it's like when someone dies of an illness or cancer and they're in physical pain, you feel better for them that they're dead, right? That they've passed away.
Absolutely.
You need to see this the same. Severine might not have had physical pain, but think of the darkness that you've experienced within your own coping mechanism. You can have compassion for the darkness he was in. Doesn't know a way out, doesn't know how to get out, doesn't think there is a possibility to get out because he doesn't think he's forgivable. How do you get out of that darkness if you don't think what you are and have done is forgivable? There's no grace,
Right.
So maybe for him that grace was passing away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good for him. Really good for him. Good for him, and not only that, but the people around him that may have experienced some of that poison.
Yeah, I know that my sister did, and she texted me, last night that her last conversation with him, she told him that he was still a horrible person and he would probably die alone. They kept contact over the years, and I never asked her about him. I don't care, but she said that he was such a bully and horrible person to her.
Yeah.
And she said our last conversation, I told him he would probably die alone.
Yeah. Does she have remorse over that?
No. She had wanted to cut ties with him throughout the years, but wasn't able to.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was, to her, it was better to have that as a father than to not have one at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe she thought he would soften up as he got older.
Not with this type of mental illness. That's like saying my eating disorder will go away as I get older. That's not how it works.
Oh, right.
Meaning it's not about age.
Exactly.
It's a spiritual problem.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so, well, you know what? There's grace for him. Whether she gives it to him or not. Clearly, she just said what he already feels. He already feels that way. Clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, so that's where we are now.
Yeah. Overall, how do you feel about it? You feel good?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I didn't know him over the years, and I've always had this thing in the back of my mind that things would not end well. But I have relief that he is dead. Mm-hmm. For me, it's relief.
It's relief for him too.
It's just relief, and
he really played an important role for you. I know that it's not the best role and it's terrible, but it was important for you to come to where you are at today. It really is. I look back at my own trauma and I'm like, all of that brought me to that point of suicide, which is where I'm at today. You and I talking right now, that was a part of this conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just me being able to connect with you and even talk about molestation. What do you think? You see where I'm headed? It's like, To me, it's all important. Doesn't mean it's all glory. Just means that it plays an important. There's a lesson involved here, and maybe for me, it had to be something terrible. But the lesson, I learned it. If I didn't, you and I wouldn't be talking right now.
That's true. And I don't know that I would have this perspective.
No, so we can thank my personal trauma for that. Right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
God, I read something the other day or saw something where it's like, stop telling people it's all for the better good. And I'm like, yeah, whoever said that is friggin' living in their own hell because they don't know how to escape. So, no, it does serve a purpose.
Right. Everything does.
I know. And to tell people to stop saying that is like saying, what should we say? Oh, we're sorry for you. Boo-hoo. Your life is horrible. Is that what you want to hear?
Yeah. So, I don't know.
What did you think it was going to be like when you heard he died? You know?
I think in the past, probably would have wanted to dance on his grave or something. But I think that would just be rude.
You need to, well, I don't think it'll do anything for you. That's like saying, ha, who's the winner now? Honestly, that's why I went right into compassion. I went right there. I didn't even go to, how do you feel? I went, how do you think he feels? Relieved. He is probably more is conscious. If you believe in an afterlife, he's probably, well, if you do, whether you do or not, but if you do, it's like he just served some horrible karma, and he, terrible. He was in hell. He was in the darkest pits of hell for an entire life. Yeah. Of course, he had a huge part to play in that. He could have had the humility that he had when he died all his life, but it took dying for him to probably reach it. I don't know. Send him love in the afterlife. Compassion. He served a purpose. There was a contract that was served between you and him, and it was a tough one. I guarantee you he served an entire lifetime of shame about that relationship with you. You think that was enough?
Pardon me?
Do you think that was enough for him?
I think so.
Yeah, an entire life of shame. Yeah. Karma's a bitch. But you know what? Serves a purpose. I really am feeling strongly about this for you. For whatever reason. I'm feeling strongly about the need for you to really end that contract in this served a purpose for me. There's no reason for me to even rejoice in his death, but to rejoice for him that it's over. It's over for him. Thank God for him. How does that sound to you?
But it's good that it's over. Like, definitely over. Like, it was always over, but I feel like it's done.
No. It's complete.
Yeah.
Unless it's not. There's a lot of people who still hold on to this shit even though the other person has passed for years. I've had clients who have been bitter with their parents who've been gone for decades. I've had parents they're still relating to that person in a victim position. They did that to me. Right?
Right.
And that's why I'm like, it's really important here that you actually wish him well. Not stomp on the grave, but go take him some flowers and say, I hope he is resting in peace. I really hope that he has peace from the torment he lived in, because he lived in torture and torment.
Right.
That's the only way he could have done what he did to you for years, you know. And then the shame associated to it, the shame attached to it for the rest of his life. Darker, even more torment and more torture. Totally and completely tortured his whole life. Self-inflicted. So we're not blaming anybody but himself, right? We're not blaming you. Him. He lived in that space. Hallelujah. He died. For him. You could, again, remember when we talked on our first session and I said, oh, you could handle that again. If you had to go through it again, you could handle it.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah. And I know you know that's true.
Mm-hmm.
You could cope with it differently. You would adapt to it differently. You wouldn't attach to it the same way at all. You might have left sooner. Who knows? But you got out of it. You survived it and you're forgiving it, right? So for him, sucks to be him, not you. Sucks to be him. It doesn't suck to be you. You're doing great.
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Yeah. You're doing fine. That's amazing, right? That's your capacity. You're capable of that. Right?
Yeah.
So I want you to really think about, as you're completing the contract with this soul, with that person, as he finished his life out and he lived a life of hell, total darkness, torture, and hell, that there is an compassion for how dark and shitty it must have been for him. We're not saying he didn't deserve it. We're just saying it was that. Right?
Right.
Dark and shitty. And you know what? There is grace. It's not, you know what? There is grace. Beyond maybe our awareness of it. But to believe that it exists and to know that even he deserves it.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would if I never talked to you, though.
That's okay. If someone came to you and had your story, what would you tell them?
Before talking to you?
No, now.
Now? They'd probably think I was crazy for telling them to look at it from a different perspective. I can tell you that if you told me this, like, without talking to you, of you specifically, Robert, it was all this time, and then my sister told me he died, and I told someone else, and I said, oh, motherfucker, I just want to go dance on his grave. Like, if somebody told me, wow, that's really harsh, and what kind of life did he live, and I would think they were crazy. Like, how dare you have compassion for this person?
This is what he did to me, right? Yeah.
Right. Like, I would still think that I was the victim, all these, like, he died, why are you thinking of him? I'm the one who suffered through, I'm the one who suffered all this time. Why aren't you talking about me?
I know. No one ever looks at it from the viewpoint of why someone would be an abuser. Like, what would bring to someone to abuse someone else?
Exactly. Yeah.
It is so, I mean, again, I had to come to this because I was just like him. It just wasn't doing it sexually, and I wasn't doing it with another human. It was within my own life and my own body. And the willingness to kill this life was no different than murder. I was willing to murder the body. Easily, it could have been another human being.
That's true.
Yeah, and so to me it was like, oh, I am that. And if I can't find compassion for how I got to this place, I'm never going to recover. There is no recovery. You are defined by everything. And so I had to look at myself with compassion, how I got to be as messed up as I was, demented as I was, dark as I was, tormented as I was, and to see that there was so much shame involved, and that the shame came from believing a life should be a certain way when it's not that way. You know, it's just and then I had to look at what would bring those people, those boys, you know, to do that to another human being. You know, what would bring someone to molest a child? What would bring an adult to molest a child? It's really sad.
Yeah.
Because that adult was a child at one point. Perfect, innocent, beautiful, potential. And something along the line, for whatever reason, for how long it happened, he became very, very, very jaded and dark and full of shame and full of anger and whatever it was that he was full of, and it just got projected onto you. You were innocent. You had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I was just there at the, right person at the right time.
Yeah, you got it. It had more to do with him than it did to do with you. You see why making it about you would be actually like passing down the issue?
Right. That's also part of the narcissism I've had all these years.
Totally. So can you see why I'm having this very strong feeling to guide you the way I am right in this moment?
Yes.
Like a very strong, make sure she's really, really feeling love and compassion for him. Not, yeah, asshole. Because that...
I could do the compassion part, but I don't know about the love part.
That's okay. That's what... I just want you to know that compassion is love.
Okay.
That's what that is. It doesn't mean... It's not like sentiment. I loved him. That's not what we're talking about. Think about that feeling of compassion. It's not pity. Right? It's to really connect with empathy how tortured he was. And had to have been till the day he died. That would bring him to be such a terrible person. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with saying he's a terrible person. He knew that. He knew that. He just didn't know how to forgive that. And get past it, right?
Right.
He knew that. He was tortured by it. To the point where he felt hopeless. Right? It's hopeless. So, why even apologize? Why even, bitter. Anyway, so I'm happy for him. I'm over here, I don't even know the guy, but I'm happy for him. Good for him. He's dead. He did it. Can you be happy for him?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I mean by compassion. Like, I'm happy for him. I'm glad he served his horrible life. He did it. What do you think happens if you could forgive him? Let's just imagine, pretend right here, like he's going to be sitting in judgment. What happens if you forgive him? Because you have compassion.
Maybe he could forgive himself.
Say that one more time. It would be what?
He could forgive himself.
Yeah, it's almost like saying, I have compassion for him. He had to have been a terrible place and existed in that terrible place to even come to reasoning around what he was doing. He had to reason it, like the state of mind to be reasoning in that to molest a child, right?
Right.
Think of that space, and that space, don't you agree, has to be included in how you forgive someone. You don't just forgive someone. You have to go, oh, well, in that space, whatever it was that brought him to that, that is context that cannot be left out. Right? Total and complete dark mental illness, just horribly toxic dark mental illness that had nothing to do with you. Right? So being able to witness that from the precursor of what he was doing and giving that person compassion, what it does is it releases him from you. It has nothing to do with you. It releases him from you. There is no karma he needs to serve you back. Make sense?
Yeah.
He does not need, I do not need an apology from him. He will figure that out on his own, but he doesn't need to say sorry to me. Make sense? Forgiving someone without needing an apology. That's like cutting a cord. Am I confusing you?
No, not at all. It's not the same thing. I didn't need him to reach out to me after all these years.
No, you didn't.
And say I'm sorry for me to deal with my own life on my own.
You didn't. You didn't need him at all in any way to recover from it. At all. This was a lesson for you, for whatever reason in this lifetime, to serve and to figure out. And he played a role in that. And now he's got to face his own reality, wherever that is, right? Do you believe in life after death or reincarnation or whatever you believe in, he's going to serve it. And does he owe anything to you?
No.
That right there, how does that feel?
It feels complete.
You didn't even need him to die to do that. It is complete. Now that right there should feel like it has become a nothing. Contract served. Box checked. Severs all cords, all ties, all connection, all everything, doesn't it?
It does.
That has to feel really good. No?
It does.
Yeah. Now, from here, can you see why you could say, you know what, I'm grateful that he is relieved. I have gratitude for him that he is relieved. I hope he reconciles this with God, and that God can give the compassion that he deserves.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, good. Does that feel good to you?
It does, but it feels very odd.
That's okay. That's okay. Just be in the oddness of it. Does it feel good?
It does.
Yeah.
It's better than anger.
Oh, hell yeah. What is anger going to do? That means you're still attached. That means you still have something you got to figure out. That means he's got to, that means you'll never recover. Right? Until you do. But to be able to say, okay, I'm good. I have gratitude for what I've learned. Not gratitude what I experienced. That's terrible. No one should do that. However, there was a reason this person was in my life and this was what happened and it has benefited me. I can honestly say that about my own trauma. No one should want trauma. Right? I'm not saying I wanted it. But if I had to go through it again, I could handle it. I could handle it and I could get in and out unscathed. Because you become self-aware. It takes this type of experience, I think, for people to really become aware of their own capacity, which is beautiful and brilliant and massive, right? You can handle that. You've handled recovering from an eating disorder, which was worse, by the way, than that. I say that with confidence, too.
Yes.
I guarantee the eating disorder was worse than molestation. Way worse. It's horrible. Horrible. And I say that with confidence. Have you ever thought of those two things and compared them?
No.
Am I wrong?
No, not at all.
Which one was worse?
Eating disorder.
Uh-huh.
For sure.
No, when you think of it like that, do you really need to go dance on his grave?
No.
You just feel sorry for him. And be like, and grateful for him and happy for him that he's out of that darkness. Because his darkness is pretty close to, if not equal to, an eating disorder. Now tell me how much you feel for that guy. Sorry for that guy. Make sense?
Yeah, it's a long time.
His entire life was existing in that type of space. The whole thing. I'm surprised he didn't commit suicide at some point. For whatever reason.
And maybe he did.
Yeah.
She said she didn't ask how he died.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he did. That's just me.
Yeah.
I don't even know the guy, but...
Same here.
Yeah, I'm grateful for him. I'm happy for this person. He didn't know how to get out. I know, that really sounds twisted.
It does if you come from a perspective of anger.
Yeah.
If you told me this, 3 months ago, I don't know that I would have had the capability of having any type of compassion for him. No
yeah,
way.
but you realize how easy it was for you to get there.
It was.
Yeah. It was right there. It was like a thin veil between love and hate. And love not meaning love and sentiment. Love and compassion. To go, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, tortured human. And I'm tortured. And if he's tortured the way I'm tortured, and the only thing to make him feel better is to doing that, no wonder he was doing that. Had nothing to do with me. Had to do with him feeling like he, for the for maybe a small period of time, feel better about himself. But in the end, he always felt shame. It's no different than binge eating. A moment of feeling better and then a really intense shame after the fact.
It's true.
Yeah. And for you to recover, it has taken grace and compassion for yourself, for him, patience. Just think of the space that this was required for you. Right? You could say this is not for, this type of life experience is not for the weak. That's for sure. Right? Not that there's anything for the weak, but wrong with the weak, but it just like, this to recover from this requires the strength and compassion and the strength and grace and the strength to think of what it takes in terms of spiritual evolution to actually go into the mind of the person that hurt you for years and have compassion for it.
Yes, it's very unconventional.
How's it working? Is it worked?
It's actually easier than being angry.
Yeah.
After you decide to do it.
Well, open yourself up to it, right?
Right. Because you realize that your dark place and their dark place is very similar. It's just manifested in different ways.
Mm-hmm. And you're forgivable, right? Because your dark place, when we look at it, it's really forgivable. You didn't intend to do harm. You knew what you were doing with binging was harmful, but you didn't intend it. You always figured you'd fix it somehow. You didn't really understand why you needed to eat all that food all at once, but you knew that there was something you got out of it, so you reasoned, rationalized, justified, lied about it, right?
Right.
To get this survival need of food. For him, it was the survival need of sex. It's just, the darkness is sad. That darkness is sad. It's a very, very sad place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess he just never spoke to the right person that could help him along out of that.
He might have been too ashamed to even, again, like I said, he believed in his mind, positive, he believed it was unforgivable, so there's no point. He believed he was that far gone. There was no point. So why talk to someone? So he was in apathy about it. Where at least you were a little higher in there. You figured there's some. Well, actually, we kind of backdoored this one. You didn't know you were going to hear all this. You didn't know we were going to address all this when you reached out for my help. So it's not like you sought help. It just showed up at the door.
Yeah.
The back door, Not even the front door. It was like, we're back here. Hi. We're going to face molestation now. You didn't know it until the second.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's like once you go into the state of that, once you look at the abusers, what would bring someone to that, and you see the darkness, and you realize the darkness, and you are aware of that darkness because you're living in it yourself, right? All of a sudden, it changes your reaction to the history.
Right.
It really changes it because you realize that what had happened had more to do with that darkness than it had to do with you. Nothing to do with you. It had everything to do with the darkness he was in and the torment in his way to try to find a way to feel better about it, right?
Right.
And the way he felt better about it actually increased the shame that made the darkness darker. So vicious cycle. Again, it's no different than you wanting food to feel better about it, but yet the shame about it made it worse. Yeah. So I just want to encourage you in your processing of this, because I know you're going to be continuing to process it. I want to encourage you to go into that space of compassion with him and release him. He has nothing, he owes you nothing. You have not been harmed. He needs to figure himself out for himself, and he doesn't need to figure it out for you. You're good. And then you wash your hands, and it is over.
All right. I could do that.
Does it feel like that's something do you get a sense of that yourself, or am I out of left field just saying, here, do something weird?
Oh, no, I could do that.
Yeah, that word you said earlier, it feels complete. Like complete. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah.
That's where that's the goal. This has been complete. This is done. There is no reason for me to put an ounce of energy into him or what happened. It's complete. It has been served. Done. Over.
And I think during these past weeks, little by little, without even realizing it, they've been working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to figure out what the feeling is you're seeking. Maybe that was it. Yeah, I think you need to do that. It can't come from me. I'm literally over here going, this is what's got to happen. This is what's going to feel like this. It has to come from you. I can't do it for you.
Right.
I can feel it, and I can literally go through it in my head. I can't do it for you.
Yeah,
It's like visualizing your last conversation with him from this point. I just want you to know I have compassion for you. This is forgivable. You're not a bad person. And then let it go. You do not owe me anything. I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay.
You see how that feels?
Yeah. You're releasing them.
Yeah.
And yourself.
Yes, because it's loving. You feel the lovingness in this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Okay. All right. I can get this thing to work. There it is. There it is.